The following program contains views that are not those of WVTC, iNetworks Communications, their subsidiaries, affiliates, or financial supporters.
Winning victory through Christ, WVTC Allsip Chicago, an iNetworks communication station.
Matthew 9:29 says, according to your faith, be it unto you. Ramon Perry and Ministry and Praise Chorale comes to tell you, you can get what you need according to your faith.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, good whatever it is, wherever you are. Greetings, greetings, greetings. I'm LaDonna, and I am here with Our Journey. Our Journey is a show or segment in which we dissect or unpack mental health issues or concerns on a weekly basis, so that way we can make it plain for us to understand and comprehend. I am a licensed clinical social worker here in the state of Illinois and a couple other states. But I do want this information is for us to be used for education or informational purposes only. It is not for us to diagnose ourselves, for us to come up with some things, but more so for us to identify things that are going on and how we can maybe assist our loved ones or ourselves as things are persisting. Okay. And so each week we dive into a topic. Today's topic, or this evening's topic, is dementia. What we're going to do with dementia is we're going to break down the 10 different types of dementia, how they are affecting each individual, how they may affect you, the signs and symptoms, especially maybe if you've received the diagnosis, if it's something that maybe you're gathering. And then at the very bottom, at the very end of the show, we're going to do It's processed through some ways in which we can support individuals with dementia, as well as support those who are the supporters or maybe primary caretakers of those individuals. Okay. As always, we typically get a topic, or I give you kind of the history or the why we're doing this topic. All right. I am doing this topic because I have been seeing numerous amounts of clients who've come in that they're either caretakers or they just received the diagnosis for a loved one in which they are going to begin the process in navigating caretaking for them, who they've received some type of dementia diagnosis and maybe they're a little bit unsure. We can get some answers and then some more maybe questions to help you formulate some questions as you're going into that diagnosing provider. Okay. And so being able to understand basically what dementia is, right? So I'll give you just a big overview that dementia is used to describe any severe changes in the brain, right? That can cause that memory loss. And so these changes may make it difficult for people to perform basic everyday activities, and they're not necessarily able to kind of keep up and have them the way in which they once were. Right, that's just a basic form of what dementia is. Now, sometimes dementia and most diagnoses of dementia, it'll cause changes in the behavior as well as the personality. So not only is it a memory loss thing that's maybe making it difficult to do some day-to-day tasks, but it also changes the behavior and the personality of a person. Now, all the types of dementia, they are affecting the three areas of the brain. Okay, so that's going to be our language, memory, and decision-making capacities or capabilities. That's what that's what dementia targets. Okay, now most cases of dementia, they're caused by a disease that the most cases are caused and they're irreversible. All right, so there's a few I'm going to point it out, and I'll say this is the one or this is the one that may be reversible, right? And that's just basically because of the type of dementia that it is, because it is something that is short term. It's not a long term type of thing. Okay, primarily due to substance use or alcohol use, and that's what is induced, and it's going to say that in the name of it. Okay. And so being able to process the different types of dementia, the progression, where it is definitely going to be something that's important. And I'm going to encourage you, if you're having questions, jot them down. You can definitely feel free to reach out to ask me. You can ask someone else. You can definitely reach out to Google. But I'm always here, even if you're maybe watching a replay or something of that sort. Definitely feel free to put the questions. I'm closely monitoring if there's a question that maybe pops up for you. Okay. So the first one is one that we have that's common, that we hear a lot, and it's Alzheimer's disease. Okay. So it's the most common type of dementia. This typically affects individuals who are between the ages of 60 and 80. The 60 and 80% of the cases are really from Alzheimer's disease. And so the signs of Alzheimer's is that they are forgetting names, maybe some recent events, they're neglecting personal needs or necessities, their mood. You may notice some personality changes or differences. You may also notice disorientation. So you're disoriented, not necessarily knowing time, place, things are just kind of a little bit out of it, right? If we just put it in plain and simple terms. Now, it's not necessarily part of the disease itself, but sometimes it is depression. You may notice that there's a depressed mood. Just because a person is depressed don't mean they have Alzheimer's, and just because they have Alzheimer's don't mean they're depressed. This is something that we've noticed that is going hand in hand for many cases. Not necessary that it has to be. And that's something that should also be addressed when individuals may have, when you're noticing. Okay, if you're noticing a depressed mood alongside some of the memory loss and some of these other symptoms, definitely be sure to point that out to the neurologist or if the PCP is taking care of it, whomever is the individual who's the treating provider at that time. Okay. And so what Alzheimer's is characterized as, it is characterized by brain cell death. Okay. As the disease progresses, many people They're likely to experience confusion, mood changes, and they have trouble speaking or walking. Okay. Now, by about older adults take up most of the cases of Alzheimer's. Okay. Now, about 5% of them of the cases are early onset, so between the ages in the 40s or 50s, but typically it's in the 60s and beyond that we're seeing the onset of Alzheimer's disease. Okay. Now, there are stages just with anything, right? Because mental health is our health. And so, just as maybe some physical things that you may be familiar with are stage, so is Alzheimer's disease. Okay. And so, the progression of Alzheimer's is broken down into 7 stages. I'm not going to give you nuances. I can give you about 2 or 3 hours worth of Alzheimer's just by itself because I've done it before, right? But the point of this is we're going to condense. I'm going to get you the information and we're going to keep going. All right. And so forgive me if I'm going to go skip through each one just to give you some information so you know what you're working with. Okay. I may come back to do just another one for Alzheimer's. That's up to you all. Okay. So Alzheimer's is broken down into 7 stages, in which it is typically diagnosed. Symptoms typically appear around stage 2. All right. So really, stage 1, we don't diagnose too often because you're not noticing. It may be just people who are, oh, what you call that? Who was that? That like some normal things, normal, right? Which we would call normal, that's taking place there that may not necessarily be the case or may be true for what's going on. And so being able to know that stages 2 through 7, those are very recognizable. And so what we can do, the recognizable dementia is really going to be starting at stage 4. We can identify it at 4 of all the different things that's going on, and there's no questions. All right, we can diagnose right away. I typically wouldn't do Alzheimer's diagnoses, but once they do that diagnosis, they're able to move beyond and go right away. When you're at stage 7, that's typically when they're going to have difficulties with swallowing, speech, things of that sort. Just even having the brain to understand that it's supposed to work to make words, right? Then we make the words, okay? Formulating words, formulating things that maybe they can remember in other stages or of the disease, okay? And so most types of dementia, right? There's different levels of care. There's different things that will go on for people and the progression of the symptoms. Okay. Now, sometimes things that kind of work hand in hand, people are like, well, what causes Alzheimer's? If I knew, I would tell you, but unfortunately, I don't really know. However, what I can explain is the information that's been gathered so far, that 3 of the main factors are age, family history, as well as genetics. Those are some things that are taking place. Okay. And so being able to navigate, though, know and understand that particular diagnosis is going to be something that is important. All right. So now this is a very resource heavy, information heavy day. All right. So I do apologize in advance. We'll make sure we get some good key points. We're going to take us some breaks. We're not taking one right now, but we will take one in a couple minutes. Okay. In a few minutes. I'm going to say a couple. All right. So the next type of dementia is vascular dementia. And so this is the second most common type of dementia. It's caused by lack of blood to the brain. All right. So vascular dementia, it can happen at as you age and really be there. Right. And so sometimes you may notice it like with high blood pressure, diabetes, for a person having a stroke. That's a common cause as well of vascular dementia. Some symptoms of vascular dementia, they'll come slowly but suddenly, depending on exactly what the cause was, right? So if there was a stroke that occurred and an individual may be having the diagnosis of vascular dementia, you notice those symptoms at the onset of the stroke. However, if it's maybe something like it's from any other type of osteo kind of thing, or diabetes or high blood pressure, is not necessarily at the onset of having that diagnosis, but rather the longevity after having it is going to be something that is important. Okay, and so navigating now what things look like is going to be important, right? Because it's being able to notice these symptoms because they're kind of discrete, they're discrete events. Vascular dementia, it tends to appear and worsen in more of a stepwise fashion. So you can really see them rather than the progressive decline, how Alzheimer's is, right? So some of the risk factors or ways in which we would kind of know maybe or kind of put you at risk for having vascular dementia would be the age, the history of stroke. So if you're an individual who has strokes or prone to stroke, as well as a history of heart attacks, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, or atypical heart rhythms. Okay, that's typically when we are noticing that those are individuals who are diagnosed with vascular dementia. Okay, so the next dementia that we're going to process through, and then we're going to take us a break, it is dementia with Lewy bodies. So dementia with Lewy bodies is known as Lewy body dementia. That's typically what individuals will call it. It's caused by protein deposits in the nerve cells. That's just the gist of it. Okay, this interrupts the chemical messages to the brain that's caused and causes memory loss and disorientation. So that's basically what goes on for us. Okay, people with this type of dementia also experience visual hallucinations. All right, and they have trouble falling asleep at night or fall asleep unexpectedly throughout the day. They may also become faint or disoriented. Okay, dementia with Lewy bodies is also and shares many symptoms with Parkinson and Alzheimer's disease. Okay, so like an example would be like the trembling of the hands or difficulty or trouble in walking or maybe feeling weak. Okay, and so Lewy bodies, it can really present in the brain of individuals with Alzheimer's, but it's rarely found in individuals with Parkinson's, the Lewy bodies. Okay, for individuals with Parkinson's, and they may also develop Lewy body dementia in their male gender. All right. They have changes in their posture. You may notice the symptoms being seen on the left and right sides of the body. So it's going to be kind of just the entire side, or the things are all affecting the same side as opposed to, same kind of pain on both sides or something like that. They're experiencing hallucinations a little bit earlier, as well as they are not necessarily responding to medications. Okay. So we've gone through 3 different types of dementia so far. We've gone through dementia with Lewy bodies. We've gone through vascular dementia as well as Alzheimer's. Okay. So what we're going to do now is going to take us a little bit of a break. We're going to take us a pause. We're going to breathe, do some deep breathing, and we're going to come back energized and ready to gather some more information that's going to be helpful or maybe helpful for you to take to your family or for you to process through with your loved ones.
Through everything there is a season, whether winter, spring, summer, or fall. God has a purpose, and He knows us one and all. Stand by when the going gets tough. Stand by when
right. Welcome, welcome, welcome back. This is our journey, and what we are doing today is we are processing through the types of dementia, and we will soon be processing through what it is that we can do to support individuals who may have dementia or who's supporting individuals with dementia. Okay. Today's segment is really geared towards family members or loved ones or caregivers who may have recently gathered a diagnosis or maybe processing a diagnosis and needing some support. All right, that's what today's primary goal is for. That's who this is for. Okay, not necessarily for you to look at a person and tell them that they have dementia. Now, we're not supposed to ever be looking at a person and diagnosing them on our own. You know, we have our steps, so we're gonna go to our doctor and get us some, assistance to then know where we should be going when we are navigating through the diagnosis stage and point, as well as a treatment plan. All right. So before we took a break, we processed through three of the types of dementia and gathered an understanding of the dementia being able to take over our language, body movement, and memory, being able to understand those. Okay. And so the three types, though, of dementia that we've processed through thus far is Alzheimer's, uh, Lewy body dementia, Lewy body dementia, as well as vascular dementia. Okay, so now we're going to continue with identifying the different types of dementia and maybe what some signs and symptoms are. So that way everyone is familiar a bit as you're processing through what the diagnosis is that you have received for your family member or maybe even yourself if you're listening again. Okay. Now, so the next type of dementia that we're going to process through is Parkinson's disease. Okay, so that's going to be our fourth one that we're going to process through. And so Parkinson's disease is the majority of people with Parkinson's. The disease, they'll develop dementia. Okay, and so the early signs of this type of dementia are problems with reasoning, okay, and judgment. So, as an example, a person with Parkinson's disease dementia, they might have trouble in understanding visual information or remembering how to do simple daily tasks. They may also have be confusing or having frightening hallucinations. Okay, that's something else that you may notice. However, this type of dementia can also cause a person to be irritable, like just highly irritable would be one of the signs that I would point out, right? That's something that would be helpful. Many people, they may come to become depressed. I told y'all we're not gonna say, well, you're depressed, you got this kind of dementia. No. And depressed or paranoid as the disease progresses. So as they have the diagnosis, as time goes on and the disease progresses in stages, you may also notice that irritability, the paranoia, as well as the depressed mood or the depression, it's going to increase as well. Okay. Some people may have trouble speaking, or they may forget words or get lost during a conversation, not necessarily kind of remember exactly where they were to be able just to continue to pick up. Okay. And so one unique, though, factor for people with dementia with Parkinson's, right, disease, is the set of the motor difficulties known as the postural instability. Okay. Gait disturbance. Okay, so that's just the PIGD is what we would typically call that. That's what we call it in the medical profession. All right, that's what we would navigate, or the inability or the difficulty of being able to initiate movement. They may have difficulties or may shuffle a lot. You may also notice that they're having problems with balancing or falling. It's a lot of things as far as balance and being able to hold things, grip things. A lot of the motor and sensory type of everyday things that we may take for granted. That's something that Parkinson's disease or dementia with Parkinson's is something that's common. Okay. But as with like Lewy body dementia, dementia and Parkinson's disease is also progressive, which you probably heard me say a few moments ago of the stages and how things will progress as far as that paranoia, the depression, and everything is of that sort, as well as kind of as we're staging something, as there is the progression of the disease, there's also heightening of many of the symptoms that we have gone through to set up to process. Okay, and it's definitely something that is that's important for us as we are navigating. Okay, so the next though type of dementia that I like to process through uh, is frontal temporal dementia. Okay, and being able to navigate and to understand is described is basically used to describe several different types of dementia. But the one thing that's in common is that it only affects the front side parts of the brain, which are the areas that control the language and behavior. So this type of dementia is sometimes referred to as Pick's disease. Okay, so frontal temporal dementia affects people as young as 45 years old. And so some individuals, some researchers, some scientists, they're not necessarily familiar or aware of the exact causes. However, it does run in families and people with mutations of certain genes, and that's something that they have discovered. So if it's something that maybe some individuals in your family may have, definitely keep a lookout because it may be something that is genetic, and that's what they've noticed, especially the scientists at the Alzheimer's Association of something that's coming up. And so, unlike Alzheimer's, memory problems associated with temporal dementia tend to occur later in the progression of the disease. So it's not necessarily as you get it, it's right there. It may be way down in several stages and being there. Okay. And so frontotemporal dementia is the most common form of dementia that occurs with individuals with ALS. All right, so that's something that's definitely common. All right, that we should keep in mind, especially as we're navigating and processing through exactly what things would look like. Okay, and so the next thing that we would really process through, the next type of um, dementia that we would go through is Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. And so we, for short, really call it CJD. All right. It's one of the rarest type of dementia. So I'm going to breeze through it like this. Someone may have it. However, it is very rare that individuals get it. It's typical that 1 in every 1 million people are diagnosed with this a year. And so, but it progresses very quickly. People often die within a year of the diagnosis. So, um, some symptoms of CJD similar to other forms of dementia, but some people may experience agitation, while others may experience depression or confusion or memory loss. Those are some common things that's known, but this also affects the physical body a little bit more than many of the other dementias. Okay, and it may cause a twitch or a muscle stiffness that goes on for individuals. And so there's sporadic Creutzfeldt Jacobs disease, and there's familiar, and then there's acquired. And so sporadic CJD is the most common type, right? And so it's the origin of where the prion spreads. And so this is the prions in this disease. They that those are known to the experts. That's what they are researching. They're broken down into these categories. Is how we do it. Then there's familial CJD as well as acquired CJD. And so familial is just what it sounds like. It's inherited. It comes from your family. Acquired is through an exceedingly rare versions of CJD can come from a abnormal prion protein that's basically that we have in our bodies, and so it's something that's very abnormal, very rare. However, I didn't want to dismiss it or not share it in case someone may have needed that information, okay, and being able to navigate through that. So the next type of dementia, we're gonna get this one, then we're gonna take us a break. I know y'all like breaks. We're gonna get us a little pause in, okay. Is Wernicke-Korsakoff syndrome, okay? So we typically call it Wernicke's. So Wernicke's disease is a type of brain disorder that is caused by a lack of vitamin B1. So it leads to the bleeding, basically, of the lower part or lower section of the brain. And Wernicke's disease, it can cause physical symptoms like double vision or loss of muscle coordination. Sometimes, or at a particular point, the physical symptoms are, if they're untreated for Wernicke's, if they're treated, rather, they can cause the part of Wernicke's to decrease, okay, and the signs of Korsakoff to appear a bit more, okay. And so Korsakoff's, so it's Korsakoff's Wernicke. So Korsakoff's disease or syndrome is basically the memory loss part, okay. So it is a memory disorder that's caused by advanced Wernicke's disease. So that's kind of why we put them together, being able to, that's typically how they're diagnosed when it is dementia. All right. And so there's a difficulty in processing information, not necessarily able to learn new skills or remember many different things. And so these conditions, they're typically linked together. However, they can be diagnosed individually, but they wouldn't be then dementia at that point. They would just be either a memory disorder or that disease. So they're Korsakoff's syndrome or Wernicke's disease. All right, but they can be diagnosed together, which will then make them a form of dementia and how they're classified as dementia. However, what we have noticed, or what they've noticed, is that the disease may be caused by malnutrition, right, or chronic infections. But the most common way in which you get it is that vitamin deficiency, typically that by vitamin B1. Okay. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to take us a little bit of a break. When we come back, we're going to identify the last types of dementia and then process how we can help individuals with the diagnosis as well as their caregivers. All right. Welcome back. This is our journey. And what we are processing today is dementia. All right. The types and forms of dementia, giving some information, some signs, some symptoms of knowing exactly what it is, maybe a bit of some education because you've maybe heard the term, maybe a little bit uncertain or unfamiliar. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go through the last ones, and then we're going to get to some helpful tips and strategies of individuals who may be the caregivers of those who um, may be individuals who have dementia or a type of one of our forms of dementia. Okay. Now, there is now uh, mixed dementia. Okay. So that's where we're going to get started at. And so mixed dementia is just what it sounds like. It's a combination of stuff. All right. But in a more scientifical way, is what we're saying is that it refers to a situation or predicament where individuals may have more than one of the forms of dementia that we've maybe already discussed or that we are going to discuss with us. Okay. So mixed dementia is very common, which you probably hadn't heard when I was like, okay, well, this is maybe similar to this. They may also have this as well, right? So mixed, that would be then they would then have the diagnosis of mixed dementia. But obviously, we're gonna have to know what is mixed with, right? So that's why I kind of put this one closer to the end. And so the common ones of being mixed together is typically vascular dementia and Alzheimer's. Okay, and that's according to the Jersey's Alzheimer's Association. And so, and up to 45% of individuals who have a diagnosis of dementia, they actually have mixed dementia, but they don't even know that that's what's going on for them. And so mixed dementia, it can look different in different people, be different things. Sometimes it's memory loss, right, or disorientation first. Is you're not necessarily there isn't a defined way because it is something that is a newer way in which we're identifying. You know what they have mixed. Now it's not new; it didn't come out yesterday. It's just a bit newer than many of the diagnoses that we have and that we're processing through. Okay. And so the next type of dementia that we'll process through is the normal pressure hypocephalus. Hypocephalus. So what we would call that is NPH. Okay. So it's a condition that causes a person to build up excess fluid in the brain. Okay. And so, and the ventricles and that's the, where the fluid and the spaces they're designed to cushion person's brain and the spinal cord. But instead, person may not have, they have this, the pressure that's there, okay, against the spinal cord. They rely on the right amount of fluid to just the right amount to work properly. But when the fluid builds up excessively, it takes place, and then there's extra pressure on the brain, and it causes a lot of pressure and strain, which then leads to the dementia symptoms. Okay, so a diagnosis of NPH, it can take some time. However, it requires many tests to then rule out other forms of dementia as well as physical disorders or diseases that may be going on. Uh, and so there's maybe about 5% of all the dementia cases internationally that are caused by NPH. Okay. And so being able to process and to know, hey, this is something that's helpful. Hey, this is something that's here is definitely going to um, be good in that process. Okay. Now, some of the potential causes of NPH may be an injury or maybe bleeding, a brain tumor, previous brain surgeries. Those are the common ones. Or maybe you're even noticing that there's some forgetfulness that's going on. There's frequent falls, a depressed mood, or maybe loss of bowel or bladder control. Okay. And being able to process and to navigate. Now, if it's something that you're maybe noticing, as usual, I encourage you to say, you know what, I'm noticing that these are some things going on. Let's go take you to get this looked at, or let's get you to someone, some professional help to see exactly what is going on for you. Okay. And so the last and final part of dementia or diagnosis of dementia would be Huntington's disease. Okay. And so it's a genetic condition, right? That causes dementia. The two types exist. So there's juvenile and adult onset. So basically, meaning that we can get it as children as well as adults. So the juvenile form, it is rare though. It's rare and it causes symptoms in childhood as well as adolescence. But the adult form typically comes on for a person in their 30s or 40s. And so we are really, so it's like premature and the breakdown as to what are the causes of Huntington's disease. But what they have been able to identify is that it's the brain nerve cells, the breakdown of the brain's nerve cells, leading to impaired movement as well as dementia or memory loss. Okay, and so some of the symptoms that may come along with Huntington's disease is impaired movement, so like jerking or difficulty walking, trouble swallowing, and then maybe those who are having mood changes. Look out for that. That's not necessarily something that is occurring. That is something that people have noticed if a person has Huntington's disease. So kind of mood changes or mood swings, excessive anger or depressed mood. Those are some things that are common for individuals with Huntington's disease. Okay, so I know that that was very, very, very information packed, right? We gathered and we went through 10 different types of dementia and ways for us to get ready to identify those dementias by gathering those symptoms and those signs. But what I want us to be able to do is to have a takeaway on today, right? So either if we have a diagnosis, if we've maybe received one for a family member, being able to say, here's something that is tangible for me. The tangible thing that I'd like for everyone to leave from this segment with today are ways in which we would be able to assist the caregivers of those individuals who may be having one of these forms of dementia, because it comes up quite frequently, right? And so something that seems like is very little to you may mean the world to them. And so for many of my clients, which is why I let you know, hey, I'm going to, we're doing this segment primarily because I've had people to come to me and they are very appreciative of what it is that people are doing for them, or even just our time together that we have during our session. So one of the most important things that I would recommend that don't really cost you anything, but a little bit of your time, is to listen attentively. So if you was already talking to them, just listen with a little bit more effort, right? Really listen to what's going on, what is that they have to say. The caregivers, they rarely expect you to really want to listen to what it is that's going on about their problems. So sometimes they just need to vent out their frustrations about what's going on, because it's not necessarily the easiest thing for them to be caretaking or caregiving for their loved one or their friend, and which is experiencing something of this nature, especially one of the types or multiple of the types of dementia. Okay. And so definitely being able to give them some of that, if you're in person, some of that head nodding, actively listening, going ahead to give them some verbal acknowledgement as well as some physical movements to allow them to know that you are listening, you're there. Uh, they know that you're not listening for real. So don't try to pretend. Give a good old college try. If you feel like you're not the greatest at it, you give it a try a few times. You get a little bit better. Okay. Um, the next thing is to not tell horror stories, right? So basically, you don't have to start telling about, maybe one of your family members had dementia or something, and they went outside or they did this or they did that, something that's the extreme, right? Maybe this is something that's common and normal for them, but not to necessarily for them to hear, ooh, yeah, girl, because da da da. That's not it. That's not something that they're wanting to hear. That's not something that will be helpful for them during that particular time. Okay. So you're going to listen attentively and you're not going to throw in your extra about what happened when your loved one had dementia, and they went to do something that was and had a horrible ending, or maybe was frightening for you at the time. Okay. And I'm stopping from giving examples. So I don't want this to re-trigger someone who may have an individual with dementia who's listening. All right. 'Cause I could give you some examples, know some closely related to me, but I'm not going to do that, right? Because we're not wanting to re-trigger individuals. Um, and so the next thing or next way in which you can navigate or manage some things is to not be judgmental. So don't be judgmental, right? And so basically what that means is don't second guess if they said that they did this, that, and the third, or they signed up the person for something, or they did this, or they did that. Go along with what it is that they're doing, not to pass your judgment or just go with the flow, but not they don't judge them based upon the decision that they made with the information that they had and the feelings that they had. Okay, because you're probably not aware of all the details of the situation as they're making those decisions. Okay, so that criticism, all of that, it is not something that's helpful. It's something for us to be able to just have it and then move on. If you have something that you may be holding on to, don't do it. Okay. So that way we can navigate and we can know what the things look like for us. Okay. The next thing, this should be at the top all the time. Ask a person what they need. I got what you need. What you need. No. Ask a person what it is that they may need in order to be able to thrive and to be able to push through and push forward with a particular thing at hand. Okay. And so it may be something big, maybe something small. Typically, it's probably going to be something that's small. If it is something that's large, maybe you have to put a group of people together to make it work for them, right? It may not be something that you can single-handedly do, but definitely ask them, is there something that you need? Is there something that I can do to assist you during this time? That one question would mean the world to them. Okay. Offer up your time. Okay. Offer to give them some time, to give them maybe some reprieve from what's going on, being able to navigate. And so what we're wanting to do is to process and to say, hey, this is something that's important. This is something that I know that you may need a little support. Let me help you. Now, they may accept it, they may not. So don't let your feelings be hurt, but offer it. Okay. Another thing, and I know this might sound contradictory, let them have some space. Maybe they don't want you by them. No, but realistically, they may need some space to be by themselves, right? Some time to process, because sometimes people start really kind of doing a little bit extra, like smothering them. Ooh, I'm gonna help you. Now we got a team of 12 people inside of one space, and y'all not allowing the person to caretake or to give to breathe, right? Giving them some of that space, giving them an opportunity to be able to do that. And so once they're able to navigate, that is definitely going to be something that is important, right? That's going to be something that is helpful. It's when we're navigating through the difficulties or navigating through what you should and do. Many of these things you can understand and know just by asking them. They may want to go out for something. They may need you to just take them out to run some errands, or maybe to do a social activity. You may want to bring some food. They may want that, right? But don't do stuff that's gonna make a whole bunch of extra work, like, we're gonna do a party or something, right? Like, ask them, but offer some things as well, right? So sometimes when you ask people what is that you need, they may not necessarily know. So I'm giving you some examples that you'd be able to ask them, hey, is it okay if I, or would you like me to, right? And being able to understand and to know that is definitely something that is helpful and will be helpful for them as you're moving forward. Okay, so that is all that I have for you on today. I do hope that you're able to gather some information about the types of dementia, as well as some things that we can do to support those individuals who are maybe caretaking for with dementia, and being able to identify those signs and symptoms that we or our loved ones may be experiencing prior to or once gathering that dementia diagnosis. That's all that I have. I do hope that this was something that was informational for you and educational. We'll be back again next week with another mental health topic. Have a great rest of your day.
Views made on the preceding program are not those of WVTC Radio, iNetworks Communications, or their financial supporters.
Winning victory through Christ. WVTC